Morning, David.
Christopher, it's good to see you. Are you well?
Well, we're nearly well.
The cold is still there.
It's just about there, but it is disappearing. We're on,
And have you
on
passed
the way to recovery.
Have you passed it on to your good lady wife?
Of course.
You do believe in sharing, though, don't you?
Oh, this is true. No point in suffering on your own.
No, because us men don't moan or complain. We just get on with it, don't we? You know.
We do.
We take all the flack about man flu, but we can take that, can't we?
We do. We take that flack whilst we get on with the job. No lying around in bed complaining.
No. Has it stopped you playing golf at all, Chris? Have you been able to get out lately?
I went out the other day. Yeah, no, it hasn't actually.
Good.
I just got to take 2 or 3 handkerchiefs with me.
Ah, that's right. Perhaps a packet of tissues or something, just in case.
Yes, something like that.
There we are. Yeah, it's all good stuff. No Debs again this week, dear viewer. Just to let you know, I had an email from her. She's having a good rest and is feeling a bit more chipper, and that's good news. And she hopes to be. I think she actually got an appointment today, which she'd forgotten about. Is the honest answer. However, she'll be back soon, and we look forward to her, as I wrote in my email to her, erudite wisdom. That was good. That was good English.
Oh, you've gone up with the world, so you're trying to pretend you're educated now.
Yeah, I've been reading the dictionary again overnight time. Yeah. Yeah, there we are.
Sounds like you need a challenge of find a way of introducing a really complicated word into a conversation somewhere in the day.
Yeah, that might be picked up with a heading, though. You know, title, mightn't it? You know, erudite wisdom. That's the stuff. There we are.
Yeah, but you should know by now that any time you might suggest anything that might be near a title for Harry,
it will never get used.
It won't get used. He'll go for something much more appropriate.
So you keep talking, Chris. I just need to use the handkerchief myself. So keep.
Oh, he's even gone for the mute button, so we don't have to hear it. Thank you for using your mute button. So anyway, yes, erudite wisdom. I don't know if it actually does apply to Rev Chat for any of us, really. It's
there we are.
Way of finding a subject and something to talk about.
Well, today we're going to be talking about grapes, aren't we, or something?
Yes, does that mean we have to start slurring our words when we get near the end?
Slur, now be careful, that could be seen as an advertisement. Do you remember that particular non-alcoholic substitute for wine many years ago called Slur?
Yeah, is it still on the market?
I've no idea, Chris. I remember having some once at the Methodist church. They were using it for communion purposes, and I found it very, very sweet.
Yeah, well, that would be no good for me as a diabetic, would it?
No, it wouldn't, Chris. Again, another thing that you just get on manfully with without any complaints whatsoever.
There we go, you see. Yep. There's no such thing as man diabetes.
No, you are a hero to the viewers of Rev Chat, Chris. There we are.
You're making me cough now.
Don't cough, Chris, because you're going to read in a moment. When we've had our pour, so I can have a slurp of my tea, you're going to read, aren't you?
I shall read when we've had a pause.
Go for it. Cheers.
John chapter 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples.
There we are, Chris. I've heard many sermons on that particular passage. One of
in your many sermons, then, what would your answers be to say, where is the boundary between bearing fruit and not? Is the tiniest little bud enough?
Well, I was going to say that a lot of the sermons that I've heard have been from bishops at confirmations or even at licensings of new clergy. I would like sometimes just to see the smallest little bud or shoot, never mind everything else, because just the tiniest bud or shoot is a sign of new life. And in the context that I have often understood this, about the new life of a potential, perhaps new church or church that's been not flourishing for many years or had problems, and often, the bishop. I've seen bishops at licenses, particularly where somebody new is coming in, saying this is now a new opportunity. Sometimes you have to prune the old away to allow for new growth, trying to support the new person, because it's often been a fact that churches. I know you find yours wouldn't have this problem, and neither would ours. Some churches don't like change, do they, Chris?
Oh, I thought they embraced it wholeheartely.
You see, because that's because yours do. You see, that's
there you go.
That's obviously the way. And
does that include the change of introducing bells ringing?
In clock chimes. Yeah, good do. So the answer to your question is, I think it is a very fine line, but it's an important line, because without the new shoot or bud, then you're not getting the new fruit at a later point, are you?
No, this might be off topic, but I've got a lovely cherry tree which I planted 4 years in my garden.
Well done.
And it has got lovely blossom on it again this year. And it had about 50 cherries last year. And I thought, oh, good, we've got lots of fruit. But before they ripened, the birds ate them all. So I didn't get any.
Well, I'm on my third year of the cherry tree, which I bought for £1.50, thrown in the back of a Lidl. I planted it nicely and loved it and talked to it and stroked it, but as the directions from our king, because he likes talking to plants. And it has flourished, and it did have lots of nice blossom, but that's all gone. And yes, the cherry fruits are starting to grow. And like you, last year we did have a plethora. That's another good word, isn't it? Plethora of
dictionary today.
Yeah, plethora of cherries. And but like you, the birds got at them first.
But that's the sort of generous people we are, isn't it? Happy to feed us, happy to let others get the fruit of our labours.
If I am but honest, I didn't mind the birds eating them because they were non-edible cherries. They were ornamental cherries, so it didn't really matter. So yes, it did solve purpose. And of course, it solved two purposes, because the bees and the little insects were getting into the pollen and all kinds before the fruits. So, so it's always nice. Cherry trees are beautiful. Beautiful. So, what about withering branches? Have you got any withering branches at all, Chris? Not you personally. I hasten to add before anybody feels I'm making a personal statement about you.
Well, we do have to get out and cut off the things that die. I mean, I've actually had more whole trees that have died in my garden over the last few years and had to come down.
You have?
The most recent, of course, was this magnificent copper beech I had in the front garden, which looked absolutely magnificent on the outside, had loads of beech masts, fantastic amount of tree. But when it came down, we found that the trunk itself was absolutely completely hollow. So it was rotting on the inside and dead.
So one big
visible and healthy on the outside.
So
there's something that we need to think about.
Yeah.
Because we've always got to remember that this reading, I am the true vine, is from John's Gospel. And John's Gospel is always known as the spiritual gospel. So this is only ever written to refer to our spirituality and the spirituality of people. And sometimes it could be quite easy for us to look pious, to say the right prayers and be rotten on the inside, just like that big copper beech. And that might be for a big copper beech or a small tree.
You see, I've often, you're quite right. Not only have I heard lots of sermons on this, I guess over the nearly 30 years in ministry now, I've probably preached on it many times as well. And it's so easy just to, when you're looking for something to say about a particular passage for a Sunday or a midweek or at a Bible study or whatever, it's very easy to pick just one or two bits out to try and make the point that you want to make, which, of course, as you will remember, at that esteemed college we mentioned last week that we both attended, we would have been taught is not the way that you should be dealing with Scripture, trying to make the point that you want to make solely. But I think with this particular passage, I've always tried to make a point that it does talk about the faith of a community, perhaps of a community, a church, or a local community, or a prayer group which has gone on for years and has become less stable because people have left or moved on or died, etc. Sometimes you do have to prune things to allow for new growth to come through, because without that new growth, without that pruning, things just die and fade. Not that your copper beech was dying for lack of pruning, I'm sure, but if you're not careful, things become stale, and the ministry that we have can become stale. I've certainly seen it and experienced it in my ministry, where a group of churches I used to be at really had got to the point where they just couldn't keep up with what I was asking them because of the rate of change that was needed. And I had to back off and just let them be for a while. But then it's very difficult to get back in and prune at a later date if you're not careful.
That's quite a big challenge, that, isn't it? And I guess other people might think that we're the thing that needs pruning.
And that's, I think in some cases that's not true. It's knowing when the right time is to say you need somebody else with new ideas or new approach to take you forward, isn't it? From our personal point of view of ministers, it's having the foresight or the insight to actually recognise, are we causing
are we causing branches to wither?
Yeah.
And I think actually, as priests, and we're probably all the same, we're probably more conscious of that than most.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because of the job we do, we're trying to keep an eye on all of it, and so desperate that we want everything to work and God's love to be shown. But again, whilst you are pruning, which is, I'll say, is normally done in the autumn, there's no focus on fruit whilst you're pruning. You can't paste a fruit onto a tree. You've just got to give the tree the right conditions for the fruit to grow in the following spring. My apple tree has been quite interesting because I used to prune. I've been tinkering with pruning my apple tree because it gets in the way and I keep banging my head walking past it, so I cut those branches off. And it's not really done much good over the last few years, but last autumn, when we had a gardener in for the day, I got him to prune the apple tree, and he pruned it in a very different method.
Yeah.
Because he said, you don't take off those shoots, you take off these. And he said, because these are the ones that are fruit bearing, so you leave those. These are not fruit bearing, so you can cut these off. And I'm gradually starting to get quite a bit of blossom on the tree this year. So it'll be interesting to see what difference it makes. So you can't just go prune willy-nilly with the bits we don't like. You need to prune with a little bit of knowledge. And I think if you're looking at a spiritual gospel, we need God to be doing our pruning for us and training and teaching us to abide in Him, so that His fruit flourishes. And we're not the fruit ourselves; we're just the means by which God's fruit can show.
So we've got to learn to listen to God more.
Yeah.
And to act upon His direction and word.
Or allow Him to be acting through us, which is even more of a challenge. Because I think so much of the time we think if we do more, God's word will be spread more. And I'm not sure actually how true that is. Yes, of course we do as much as we can, but I think actually the word spreads as much through us allowing ourselves to be God's vessel and just who we are.
So this is the abiding. We've heard many words today, some far too posh and silly from me, but abide is such a lovely word, isn't it? Yeah, just being with, I think it
Being
means.
with, yeah, and being inside of.
And it's this particular passage which the priest in Devon at the time in the 1800s, who was dying when he wrote the words of the beautiful hymn "Abide with Me," he took the words from this.
Yeah.
There you are. Possible knowledge, aren't I, over hymns, as you know. Abide, it's such a beautiful word. Just rest in me. It's a bit like that book Ireland group read. But it's about tarrying with God, waiting on God in a peaceful, still manner. And that's what this passage says. Just wait with me. Be with me. Do what is necessary to allow for this stimulation of new ways of being or growth or whatever to come through.
Sounds lovely, doesn't it? It's a nice vision.
So the great challenge is that we've got to learn to abide more.
Yep. And that's the third posh word from Reverend David Baldwin today. It started with erudite.
It did.
And what was the second one again?
Don't ask me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll think of it in a moment. Tarrying is another good word. It's not particularly posh, but it's good.
Yeah, because it just means hanging around, doesn't it?
It does. That's and in a way, Chris, when you think about it, that's what you did when you started up your point and a word with the vicar kind of group. Yeah. I know it was very difficult for you to hang around in a pub, but you did.
Such hard life, isn't it? These things we do.
Yeah, all for the Lord.
Of course.
Not for anything else. You're hanging around in a pub for men who perhaps wouldn't want to talk about faith issues to come. And they did. And I remember Daniel, when he was our curate, he did a similar thing in the pub in Mosterton. He just hung around. And it was amazing, some of the conversations, and discussions that led to over about a 2-year period with him. Quite fascinating. Tarrying, abiding. There we are, dear viewer. Abide with the Lord. And perhaps, Chris, we'll see. Perhaps we can compare notes on our abiding over this coming week has led perhaps to a greater insight and understanding of what the Lord's saying to us.
It's quite a challenge, isn't it? And maybe that's one of the purposes of our prayers as well. We just sit quietly, tarry. Yeah. The abide in me and I abide in them.
Yeah.
If we start with this abiding in God, then God promises to be back with us as well. It's a two-way thing.
Yeah. Whatever you wish, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. I always found that a great challenge, because I did ask once if I could play for England at cricket, and the Lord didn't seem to think it was a good idea.
No. I think I asked for £1 million once as well. That didn't happen either.
Perhaps we were asking for the wrong things, Chris.
And you know what? That almost sounds like the subject of a completely different Rev Chat.
It does. Perhaps we were asking for the wrong things. We'll bear that. Anyhow, dear viewer, I hope that your abiding, tarrying will lead to you bearing much fruit in the coming days, weeks and months ahead. And Chris and I will try our hardest. And like you, Chris, I had my apple tree pruned a few weeks ago. And hopefully it won't be so much this year, but next year it'll bear a bit more fruit for us.
Well, let's hope so.
Because if it bears a lot of fruit, then the local people get it, I'll put it at the gate and people take it. So that's good. I like sharing my apples because I can't eat the amount the tree has on them.
No, we can't get rid of them all. You have to find ways of giving them away.
That's right.
And there spiritually, we wish to do the same. We wish to let our fruits be shared amongst all those around us, so that then they might develop their own fruit, and then that can share and it grows and spreads the word of God throughout this area.
We most certainly do. Well, there we are. Good to see you, Chris, and hopefully we'll be back up next week, and hopefully Debs will be with us. We'll have to ask her to bring Callie, the new team vicar, along. Perhaps she could join us, couldn't she?
Well, yeah, be our next guest appearance.
It could be. She could become a permanent guest.
Oh,
I would imagine being a mere youngster compared to me, and modern as opposed to you and me, dinosaurs, she'll be able to do all kinds of weird things on the computers and that you and I can't do. I don't know. I may be over egging her.
I'm sure over the coming weeks, months, and years, we will gradually find out.
We will find out. We certainly will. There we are. Well, Div, you know where we are because you're watching this, so you've obviously found us. Spread the word, spend time abiding, and then let us know what fruits you born.
Brilliant.
Go then.
All right, cheers, bye.